You are live.
Hello and a big warm welcome to my diveLIVE family. Thank you again for joining me today for another dive. So today I am out in front of Casuarina Point here on Grand Cayman, or a little to the right hand side actually, on the western side of Grand Cayman Island, right out the front of our good friends Don Foster's Dive Centre. So I am at 10 metres depth, so 32 feet down. Now today we have Emil, the Hungarian, on camera, Lauren, the Scot, on camera, and I am Pat from Australia. So today I'm going to be looking for a turtle. We haven't had one for quite some time now, so I really just want to see a turtle. And apart from that, I'm just going to let the chips fall where they may today. Not going to be looking for anything in particular, but I do want to see something different. So we have been putting a lot of emphasis on finding new species lately, and that's what I plan to do today. So please, if you have any questions whatsoever, send them in to, if you're on Twitter, using the hashtag diveLIVE. Please try and make it relevant to what we're seeing today though. Now to start, we do have a pair of lionfish gliding under this crevice here. So, Lauren, why don't you say hello and then we'll have a bit of a chat about this lionfish.
Hi everyone. So I am not on camera. I think Pat meant to say surface, but I wish I was that talented with the camera. But thank you for joining us, and we do have two big lionfish. So over to you, Pat.
Yeah, so these lionfish are like seeing an ex-girlfriend at a party. They are beautiful, but you really don't want them to be here. So they are an invasive species, and that is what I was getting at there. So they do not belong here in the Caribbean. They came here from the Indo-Pacific region, and they were introduced, well, they're not really sure how they were introduced, but it could have been through the aquarium trade or through transportation in the ballast water of ships. Now, they have had a devastating impact on some ecosystems here in the Caribbean because they are essentially predatorless. As you can see, they've got very long spines. They are also venomous. So when they came here, not much was really eating them, but at the same time they were consuming a very diverse diet of a lot of small fish and crustaceans that they were usually eating before they could even get the chance to become reproductively active, and so therefore really threw out the natural balances of a lot of these ecosystems.
So this brings us to a good point, Pat. Child of the Universe is asking, should you kill them since they are invasive?
Yes, so there is a culling program. Now, generally we don't advocate the killing of animals, but when they are having such an impact on an ecosystem, the best thing to do is to cull. And so they have done this in a really good way. They've made it almost like a well, the way they've done it is that lionfish is a really good food source, so they're using the lionfish by eating it, so it's not going to waste. And what they're also to put in place is special programs that you can do to learn to cull these lionfish with a spear. And so a lot of locals and people that have taken this course are able to go out and spear the lionfish almost as a sport.
Yeah, that's right. So there is a culling program here, but it is monitored and regulated, and a lot of people are mentioning that. Why don't we just kill them? So I hope that answers your questions. And ladybugs and daisies asked for lions this morning, so yeah, you technically did get them. You got two lionfish. So it's probably worth mentioning all those venomous spines, the feather-like projections that come out from the body on either side and on the top. They're filled with venom, and it's just a defense against predators for these animals. So it's kind of a paradox. They don't have any predators here, yet they have such great and complicated mechanisms to protect themselves. But obviously in the true ocean where they belong, in the Indian Ocean, Indo-Pacific, they do have natural predators. So Pat, Clifford is asking, how were they introduced?
Well, that is not really confirmed, but invasive species in the ocean are quite often spread by being caught in the ballast water, which sits in the hulls of the ship. So there's a lot of water also inside the ship, and this almost acts like a mini aquarium. And so when these ships go around the world, they can introduce new species to new places. There is another theory that it was introduced here through the aquarium trade. So they are a valuable species in the aquarium trade, and they believe they could have been released into the Caribbean because of that also.
Yeah, they don't actually know, as Pat said, so there is just a few theories going around, but there's not conclusive evidence.
But marine invasive species is generally because of boating and ocean transportation, because us humans have explored all of the surface of the ocean, and we do tend to trade and send things around the world, and all of globalization, a lot of species take advantage of this, especially encrusting species like your barnacles and your mussels and anything that can cling to a surface, because they're obviously able to cling to the hull of a boat. But as I said, their boats also have ballast water inside of them as well, which can harbour pelagic species and other species that aren't necessarily encrusting. So that is a massive contributor to marine invasive species.
Yeah, and they literally are everywhere. There is some reefs off the coast of Florida where you can find up to 1,000 lionfish per acre. So there's a lot of lionfish there, and we do regularly find them here on diveLIVE.
Hey Lauren, can I please just get the microphone up a touch?
Sure, I'll just get Jared on that.
Thank you. Oh, I can see up in the distance here a queen angelfish.
So, Pat, can you just let me know if that's better for you?
Yeah, that's great, thank you.
Okay. You see a queen angelfish. Is that what you said?
Sorry?
Did you say you saw a queen angelfish?
Yes, but it is hightailing it away from us. I know it has slowed down now.
It still looks like there's loads of fish just hanging above the reef in the water column.
Yeah.
Pretty much like this morning.
Yeah, so it's been pretty active all day down here. I'm assuming this is because of all the plankton, so visibility has dropped a little bit. And this is because of all the plankton, so stirred up in the water. So plankton is a collective term given to any living thing in the water that doesn't really have the capacity to fight the currents, and so it just drifts about. Now this can be animal and algae alike, but obviously being small little animals and other edible food sources, fish take advantage of this and have a bit of a feeding frenzy.
Well, just while we're getting these angelfish, Proud Cat Mama asked what is the average lifespan of a lionfish, and we do believe it is around 15 years. So it's quite long-lived. And there we go, we can now see properly the queen angelfish.
And all of its beauty. These are definitely one of my favourite fish here on the reefs at Casuarina Point, and it's no secret as to why. Just looking at them is amazing. It has a very, very iridescent blue tinge around it, and then the bright yellows for contrast. They are beautiful. We can see it here, having a bit of a munch on. I can't really see what it's eating there actually.
It doesn't really, it just seems to be sort of having a look. I haven't really seen it take a munch out of anything yet. These guys feed all day long. You can see the stoplight parrotfish just munching away on the algae, but the queen angelfish, I'm not sure. So Pat, there is a comment that the valve on top of your tank is leaking. Can we have a little look?
The valve on top of my tank? That must be an O-ring issue. Let me check my edge to make sure that it's not a serious leak.
Yeah, let us take a look as well, Emil. But thank you for pointing that out. That was from Inge. I think that's how you say your name. Well spotted. Emil, can we take a look at Pat's tank?
Yeah, Emil's saying it's all okay. So I am on 150 bar, so it doesn't seem to be affecting my air too much, but I will keep an eye on my air. I'll be extra vigilant of it. So
yes.
Thanks for pointing that out.
I will be a great dive buddy, and I will keep checking his air too. Sometimes you do get leaky O-rings from the tank, so that's what that will be.
Oh, this angelfish here is getting clean.
Oh, I love seeing things being cleaned.
Well, there is just an abundance of angelfish around actually. So in the last probably 3 or 4 minutes, I've seen 4 queen angelfish and about 6 rock beauties. I don't know what's attracting them to this.
It's an angelfish kind of day.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Elaine is asking quite a reasonable question. Hi, Elaine. Can these fish overeat?
Can fish overeat? Wow, that's actually something I've never really looked into.
Even thought of, right? I imagine they wouldn't, because they're animals and they go on animal instinct. I imagine they would eat until they're full and then eat again when that has digested. I don't quite imagine they will be overeaters, maybe like me, but good question.
I could imagine possibly in the aquarium trade that it may be overfeeding, or even in aquaculture that fish could potentially be overfed. But I think in the wild they are probably okay.
And we do have Fari from the Maldives watching. Hi Fari. He is an expert on manta rays and works in a very famous area with manta rays. So hi, nice to see you. And if you do have any questions, you are welcome to send them through. So Pat, Proud Cat Mama's asking, how do you tell the difference between a male and female angelfish?
Well, unfortunately, that is not very possible because they are not sexually dimorphic, so they tend to express differences in juveniles to their adult phases. They look very different from what their juveniles look like, but in terms of sex, they don't really show a difference. They have internal gonads, so that means that both the male's reproductive organs and the female's reproductive organs are held internally, so we can't tell by looking either.
Yeah, a lot of fish don't necessarily show sexual dimorphism. They tend to be polychromatic, having different colour phases through different stages of their life, not necessarily different in between the two sexes. Now, JC Charles has asked a question, and I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to pronounce it, but do you get humununa? I can't even do it. It's the Hawaiian name for a certain species of triggerfish, I believe, and they are the Picasso triggerfish is what I used to call them in the Maldives, but I do believe they also get called the reef triggerfish. And no, sadly we don't get them here because they're incredibly beautiful. And I would love to be able to pronounce that name you just put on Twitter, but unfortunately it's beyond me. Do you know what I'm referring to, Pat?
I believe I do. But while we are talking about beautiful triggerfish. We actually have a queen right here.
Oh. Oh yeah, I can see it now. It was hidden by all those Creole wrasse.
Yeah, this Creole wrasse little school here is very dense. They seem to be very focused on something here.
Yeah, we're getting a really good look at the Creole wrasse. Normally we're not able to get so close to them. They have quite an unusual colour pattern. They look like someone's just splashed paint all over their body. And I don't think I've ever seen them cleaning. Have you, Pat?
No, never actually. Yeah, very strange little encounter.
It's good to see some cleaning action. We do really enjoy when we see the fish cleaning on top of the reef. It's an essential part of their daily routine, just like it is ours. They all must be cleaned, and normally it's to remove those cheeky ectoparasites that they have attached to their body. And it's a great food source for other fish. If they act like cleaners, then they can sort of avoid being eaten and get some food. In front of us right now we have the beautiful, magnificent and graceful queen triggerfish.
Yes, it is an amazing sight to see these queen triggerfish. They are very oddly shaped. They're like the queen angelfish. Very oddly shaped but brightly coloured as well, which kind of their shape and their colour kind of complement one another. Really make them stand out here on the reef. If you're looking at the general reef habitat, they really stick out amongst all the other creatures there.
Yeah, and they can get very large. They're not the largest of the triggerfish family, but they're definitely one of the largest. And you can see they're just not using that tail fin, also known as the caudal fin. They're really using their dorsal and anal fin to propel them through the water. The tail fin is just used like a rudder to give stability and direction.
And what is the motion of that thing called?
What was that? Sorry, Pat?
What is the motion of those?
I actually genuinely didn't hear you the first time, but we call that undulating, which we do have an ongoing joke as it's one of my least favourite words. So I do avoid saying it. And Elaine, who happens to be my mother, is asking if triggerfish bite. And I don't believe the queen triggerfish does, but the titan is notorious for biting divers and snorkelers. They are very confident, very aggressive, and will do anything to protect their nest. And the females will bite. The unfortunate thing is they do have human-sized teeth. They are what my nightmares are made of. But regarding the queen, she actually has a really special membrane located just at near her pectoral fin that she's able to vibrate, and it produces a throbbing sound, and this actually scares other fish away so they don't come near her. Oh, we have two honeycomb cowfish.
Yes, and we can see that one of them is slightly blue. So this is making me wonder whether they are in fact a mating pair.
Oh, one of them just took a big bite of algae, I think, but that would be lovely if they were a mated pair. You can see the
fish is trying to scare them away, but they are not budging.
Yeah, they found something that they really like to feed on. So you can see the spines above the eye, but if you also look closer to the back of the body, there's also two spines towards the caudal peduncle. And the caudal peduncle is just the area where the body meets that tail fin.
There we go, we've moved from one of your least favourite words to one of your favourite.
Yes, I love the word caudal peduncle, it makes me happy. Oh wow, this is fantastic footage.
You see the one of the larger of the two, I'm assuming the male. Can you see how bright blue it's going right now?
Yeah, it's really blue, and the other one's quite dark.
It's incredible. So last time, wow, it's really turning its colours on now. Do you think they're gonna? Oh, Last time I saw two of these species doing this, it was because they were mating. So one turned very bright blue, and then they circled each other above the water about 5 meters up, and then they released their gametes. So if we stay on them for a little bit, hopefully they do that again.
Yeah, and they are able to lighten or darken their skin patterns. A lot of fish are able to do it. So depending on what they're doing and what they're trying to communicate, they can make their skin go brighter or darker. So just to clarify to some people, it's caudal peduncle. So you would spell that C-A-U-D-A-L, caudal, which is also another word for tail in fish, and peduncle, which I believe is P-E-D-U-N-C-L-E. Is that right, Pat?
Sounds like you've got it right.
And Craig has suggested I use osculating instead of undulating, and that is a fantastic idea. I will do that right away. So this is a honeycomb cowfish. It is part of the wider boxfish grouping of fish because of that boxy skeleton, but it is actually a cowfish, and we know that from those two spines above each eye, which are supposedly to resemble cow horns. And yes, many people are spelling caudal peduncle, and that is correct, Sammy Jane.
So this one has left its mate behind, but it's still turning its colours on and off. So I'm really not sure what it's trying to communicate here. I know that some fish do it whilst they are feeding, and this one does seem to be snapping up quite a bit of food right now.
Yeah, they just seem to be feeding, not necessarily courting. Would you agree?
Yeah, all the fish have been extremely hungry today.
So Fari, a very good friend of mine from Maldives, is asking about the triggerfish. So how many species are recorded to date in the world? That's an interesting question. I can tell you there are 5 different species recorded for the Caribbean here where I am right now, and we do not get the Titan triggerfish, thank goodness. We also don't get the Picasso triggerfish and many different ones. So there's 5 for the Caribbean, but I'm not sure about the world. Do you know, Pat?
No, I have no idea, I'm sorry.
That's a really good question, though. I will get on it and I will get back to you. So normally these cowfish are really skittish. They normally just hide and avoid. They're quite shy, but these two are just really confident in front of us here.
Yeah, they're really active right now, and it just seems to be eating just about everything it comes across. Damsel fish telling it to go away. Something we frequently see while we're here. Almost, you can guarantee at least once per dive you're going to see something getting chased by a damsel fish.
Even us, even when I'm doing my photography dives, I regularly get chased away by these damselfish. So Fari, obviously the triggerfish family is known as Ballistidae, and I believe there are around 40 species worldwide. It depends on where you are in the world to which species you're going to see. So that's interesting, and I'm very glad we don't have the Titan triggerfish here.
Oh, now let's look over here. This grain coral looks as if it might be bleached, and if so, this will be the first instance of bleaching I've actually seen.
Oh, I'd love to have a look at this.
So we can see that the coral is mostly just skeleton now. it's pretty clear to see what's the healthy part of the coral and what has been reduced to white skeleton.
So what Pat is showing us is actually incredibly cool. It's an old brain coral, most likely diveLIVE, I think. And at the bottom, at the very edge, you can see a sort of small layer of live coral. Emil is going to zoom in now, I think. It's a completely different colour, and this is still alive. It's still thriving. It's still healthy. But the most part, the top part of this coral is completely dead. Now, it would kind of be impossible to say if it was bleaching. It could also be from disease, and it's long dead. Algae has overgrown the skeleton, and it's now just been sort of reduced to rubble. So that is really cool, Pat. Got a great comparison there.
Yeah, it really does. Just show, because we do find about bleaching a fair bit, or just coral disease sometimes as well. And this really highlights what it actually looks like. It's hard to get a bit of a visual when you don't really know what it looks like. So, yeah, and this is also the advantage of corals living in colonies with thousands of tiny animals making it up. Because it's not one complete organism, you can imagine if this was a complete organism that it would probably be completely dead now because of the amount of area that has been affected. But because it's lots of little organisms, they can continue to grow and reproduce. So this colony might not be going yet, it can still grow back.
Yeah, that's right. And if Emil just zooms out a little bit, we're actually able to see a number of different hard coral species. So just to the right there, there's a funny looking, I don't even really know how to describe it. Nope, just a little bit left and down. Yes, right there is a different coral species. So right in front of us we have the sort of brain coral and the other encrusting coral of two completely different species. And if we go behind the brain coral, there's another big boulder coral, another completely different species. So just in this little coral head that Pat has shown us, you can see a whole diversity, a whole range of different coral species. That's really awesome, Pat.
Yeah. It's good to sort of have, a few different species of corals together. But now let's get back to the fish. I have found a pair of white-spotted whalefish right over here, and now that entire time we were talking about coral, they have been in this same spot, feeding on the exact same thing, in the same position.
Oh yeah, so those are the very close relatives of the triggerfish. We now have two white-spotted filefish. And actually one hasn't got its white spots turned on and the other does. So there's a perfect example of how animals can lighten and darken their skin.
Oh, can you see that one erecting its trigger there as well?
Yes, we can. I hope everyone got a good glimpse of that thorn on its head. And of course, that is where the name triggerfish originates from. But these are not triggerfish, they're just very closely related to them. And they do have a big spine that they can erect, like it is doing right now. But it's slightly different from the trigger of a triggerfish.
Yeah, another way to group these fish is by calling them leather jackets. And this might sound a bit funny, but that is because they have a jacket of leather. Well, not really. Their skin is very, very rough, and it's almost abrasive. And actually, some time ago, these fish used to be caught and dried, the skin dried out, and used as sandpaper. So they have a very, very leathery skin. What are they doing?
I do not know. Are they fighting over the same piece of food? I'm really not sure, but this one's definitely got its thorn up.
Yeah. They've been behaving quite strange. So, as I said before, they were really interested in this spot just here. They were both upside down, poking at it for ages. And then we came over and they were obviously still there, and then it almost looked like they were trying to lay eggs there or something by rubbing their pelvis on it.
And you can see, just the same as triggerfish, they are using oscillating motion of their anal and dorsal fin. And again, they're not relying on that tail stroke caudal fin. There's a lot of similarities between these families. And you can actually see, I've never noticed this before, but because we're very close to this fish, it does have little sharp spines on the caudal peduncle. Can you see them, Pat?
Yes, yes. So it has 4 on each side, it would appear. And I'm assuming this is a defense against being eaten.
Yeah, I've never noticed that before. So Pat, just because of I'm a great dive buddy, can we have an air check?
Yes, we can. So I am on 90 bar.
Alrighty, so still plenty of time to find some more fish. And those of you that have been following the journeys of Pat and I, you will know we're still playing that game. We're still trying to identify one new species of fish per dive. So keep your eyes peeled, Pat.
I definitely will. And if I spot anything I'm not sure what it is, I will put you and your identification to the test.
I'm sure you will indeed. So the file fishes and the triggerfish, they are quite common characters that we occur on the reefs. We see them regularly, but we also find ones that we really don't know, and that's where we sort of put ourselves to the test and we try and identify it for you and add it to our ever-growing species list.
So I have found one that we haven't identified yet. This little fella just here.
Oh, okay. You want to describe it while I'm having a little look through the book?
And don't forget, if you are watching along on this dive and you think you might know what it is, please let us know, even if it's not the specific species, that you might know a general grouping of it. Please help us out.
Well, I have found it. What do you think it is, Pat?
I don't know. I'm thinking a wrasse.
You are correct. It is a wrasse, and we regularly speak about the bluehead wrasse. This is actually the yellowhead wrasse, but it's in its juvenile phase. So once it enters the initial phase, it looks completely different, and then again, it looks even more different when it goes into the terminal phase. So good spot, Pat. That's a new one.
Yeah, well, good identification. You were quick on that one.
Well, you know. Awesome. So that's another one to add to our list.
Beautiful.
So these can also be cleaners as well, but they're definitely not as common cleaners as the bluehead wrasse. The bluehead wrasse do a lot of the cleaning around the cleaning stations when they are juveniles. So most fish, when they're juveniles, they take on that role, and it's a perfect way to avoid getting eaten by predators. But once they get older, a lot of fish will just sort of leave the cleaning role to the juveniles. So I have a really good question from Take Care Pat. What allows their tail fins to sort of expand and contract? Do those fins have bones?
Yes. So, is this just for fish in general?
Yes.
Yes. So, actually, something really interesting about the pelvic fin, the pectoral fins, is that they have the genetic makeup to be able to have fingers, but obviously they don't because they're in the water, so they benefit more from the fins.
So quite a few people are still hoping for a turtle, and trust me, I am too. I'm a bit of a turtle mama, and for some reason, I will not be able to tell you why, we haven't really seen turtles in about a week now, and I'm not sure the reason for that. Normally we encounter hawksbills regularly, but for some reason they seem to have disappeared. Would you agree, Pat?
Yeah, definitely. The last time we saw them was not actually underwater. We were out on the boat on Saturday and we saw quite a few on the surface of the water, and there was a lot of sargassum around as well. So perhaps that is what attracted them to come here, but maybe they've been moving away with it as well. I really don't know. I can't explain why we haven't been seeing so many lately.
The weather is changing and there is a lot of sargassum on the surface, and that acts as a food source to a lot of animals and also a temporary home and protection. A lot of fish will hide out in the sargassum, which makes it a perfect place for the bigger fish to come along and take a snack. Now my good friend Shan from Maldives is also watching, so just big shout out to you. And if anyone does have any questions, we're not able to always answer them all, but please do send them in. We do have a spot fin butterfly up ahead.
Yes, a beautiful butterfly fish this one is. The way that their dorsal fin or their top fin is formed, it almost makes it look like they've spiked their hair up. It goes very spiky and then smooth at the back. And we can see how they are related to the angelfish. They've got those extended dorsal and anal fins there.
Yeah, you can. They spike up those dorsal fins and the little spines, and they do look like cool dudes. And they do have that black spot at the back of the body, the rear end of the body, which is where the name comes from. And as with most butterflies, they generally either tend to have a false eye or some way of camouflaging their real eye. So most of the butterfly species all around the world will have a black band running down their eye. And this is with intention. It's to confuse the predator. So it disguises their natural eye. And when they're fluttering by like the butterflies do, the predator will get confused and they're not entirely sure. Oh, we just had a momentary glitch there. So we're not entirely sure which end is the head and which end is the tail. And King Quad suggested it looks like Bart Simpson. What do you think of that one, Pat?
That is a great comparison.
Yeah, I love that one. We'll definitely adopt that one as well. So Proud Cat Mama had a question about the yellowhead wrasse. And she was asking, are the males territorial? So why don't we explain about the male and female relationships within the wrasse family, Pat?
Yeah, so like with the yellowhead wrasse, so they establish what are called harems. And so what a harem is a dominant male and a group of females. And this whole territory is controlled by the males, so they have to spend a lot of time and effort looking after their girls, making sure they're fed and protected, but in return they get to mate with them whenever they please. Now, and they also defend this territory as well from other males. And so, if for some reason the male is excluded from this territory, whether it be by death or chased out or anything like that, then the biggest and dominant female will start to transition into the dominant male and take control of this harem. And then this new male, will defend this territory as well.
That is right. The life of a wrasse, huh? Doesn't sound too bad to be a male. But they do, like Pat mentioned, they have to spend a lot of energy looking after their females and feeding them before they can mate with them all. So in answer to your question, the yellowhead wrasse will also be similar to what Pat described and most likely will defend a harem and a territory. So it looks really clear down there. Despite the plankton that's flying by, it still looks really good visibility. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting it to be pretty bad down here considering how overcast it is. But the light is actually really nice at the moment. Really pretty scenes down here.
And we still do have time for a turtle yet. Just give us another air check, Pat, because of that leaky tank.
Yes. So I am on 70 bar. We're starting to reach the time where it's time to end the dive. But we still do have a little turtle time, so...
Well, I have a good question for you while we're sort of swimming along. Big Texa is asking, what fish pays the most attention to divers? What would you say, Pat?
A lot of fish are pretty timid, but I have also noticed that it depends a lot on the day. At least here, some days the fish will be completely unaltered by your presence, and some days they will just run at first sight of anything. But here I would say for the horseye jacks and tarpons, they tend to be very curious, or not curious, but they tend to hang around a lot. And the barracudas are very curious. They come up, have a look around, and then they swim off. And
I think I would say the mutton snappers. I would say they're the most curious of them all.
Oh yes, the mutton snapper, definitely.
Yeah, those naughty fish are really big snappers. We do show them a lot during the dives, and they do tend to come right up to divers because they are expecting a handout. A lot of divers who do kill the lionfish that we showed at the start of the dive, they spear them and they put them in a bucket, and sometimes the mutton snappers get a handout. So now they expect every diver to give a handout, so they will come really close. Not dangerous, not aggressive, but they will really check us out.
Now these barjacks that we can see right here, so the barjacks are the silverfish with the blue stripe, they're acting very strange. They've been hanging around this one spot, kind of all brushing up on one another. I'm not sure why they're doing this.
Yeah, it's strange. Normally you see them following other fish species, not each other. But here we have a trio of barjacks.
So there's another couple joining them now. Perhaps.
I can see some cleaner fish. Do you think they're maybe preparing themselves to clean?
Yeah, maybe they have stopped off. They have a bit of a group shower together. But now they are cruising off over the sand. So I thought they may have been coming together to mate, but they must have just been getting a clean.
And King Quad mentioned it looks like mini tuna, and yeah, I agree. The sort of big predatory fish do tend to have a similar body shape, very streamlined, very thin, with the sharp forked tail, which creates a need for speed, if you like. And yes, they do look like mini tunas, I do agree. So Pat, Travis was asking, would there be any predators that the divers are keeping an eye out for and would tend to stay away from?
Sorry, can you just repeat that one more time?
Would there be any predators that the divers are keeping an eye out for and would stay away from?
Ooh, well, here, not many at all. So there isn't really anything on this reef, any predators that are going to harm us. So we have nurse sharks, one of the big predators, but they're very placid and they don't have the big teeth. They can, if they bite you, they would still hurt you, but there's not really any reason why they would bite you. The stingrays, they do have a dangerous barb, but that's very easy to stay away from, and they won't come up and just stab you with it for no reason. Eagle rays are the same, but they are not harmful. And the barracudas, there is anecdotal evidence that they will attack people with shiny jewellery on, but I don't have any reason to be scared of them. So yeah, there's not really any predatory fish that we need to fear down here in KK.
Yeah, I would agree. There's nothing to worry about in Grand Cayman. The only fish I am genuinely petrified of is the Titan triggerfish, which I mentioned, and it's not here in the Caribbean. I am pretty scared of fire coral. I've had some nasty interactions with them, but in terms of predatory fish, no, I wouldn't say there is any. Is that the same queen triggerfish ahead, Pat?
Yes, it must be. I did see another one just before, so perhaps there's one just lurking around. I'm not sure. It appears to be like there's multiples of some species today.
I do believe we are swimming through fish excretions. I did see a fish poop, and that is what we are seeing ahead of us right now, and the other fish will come and eat that. The circle of life. And Shamson mentioned if we're seeing the barjacks, does that mean a stingray is close by, Pat?
You are very right to think that, but unfortunately not. So barjacks hang around other species that know where the fish are, and so stingrays are one of these. There's nowhere through this, sorry. So stingrays do scent a lot on the sand, and so the barjacks will follow them around and essentially use them like a metal detector for their food. And they also do this with goatfish, because goatfish have sensory barbels on their chin that they can use to find things. So the barjacks do tend to just hang around other fish that know where food is. They're a bit scavenging in that sense. So you are right in thinking that it could indicate a stingray, but in this case, it wasn't right. And I have hit 50 bar. So I really enjoyed this dive. I had 2 great dives today. Thank you all for coming down to the depths and joining me. And we will be back tomorrow, 7 AM and 11 AM, Grand Cayman time. I hope you can join me then. Thank you, Emil. Thank you, Lauren. And thank you, diveLIVE family.
No, thank you, Pat, for always supporting me and giving us great dives. And thank you, diveLIVE family. We will see you tomorrow.